Every summer, millions of people walk into a hardware store, hand over close to $10 for a bottle of Spectracide, and spray it across tomato plants, rose bushes, and vegetable beds, hoping it solves every problem crawling through the leaves. 2 weeks later, the aphids are back, the ants are back, and so are the slugs, right on schedule, chewing through the same plants all over again. But there's a white powder sitting in your kitchen cabinet right now that handles 4 completely different garden pests through 4 completely different mechanisms, and it costs less than $1 to use for an entire season. Here's the cycle almost everyone gets stuck in. Spray once, watch it work for a week or 2. Watch a different pest show up the moment the first one clears out, because most bottled insecticides are built to kill on contact, not to change anything about why pests kept showing up in the first place. Flip a bottle of Spectracide triazicide over, and the active ingredient is gamma-cyhalothrin, a synthetic pyrethroid that disrupts an insect's nervous system on contact, causing paralysis within minutes and death shortly after. A 32-ounce concentrate runs between roughly $8 and $11, and depending on how often pests return, that bottle might only last a handful of applications before you're back at the store. That's genuinely effective chemistry, no argument there. It kills what it touches, reliably, fast. But it also kills indiscriminately, meaning beneficial insects, ladybugs, bees, the predators that would normally keep aphid populations in check on their own, take the same hit as the pest you are actually targeting. Spray broadly enough, and you're not just clearing pests. You're clearing out the natural defense system your garden already had. There's a second problem building quietly underneath the first one. Insects that survive repeated exposure to the same pyrethroid don't just get lucky. Some carry a genetic mutation in their nervous system, the kind researchers call KDR, that makes the chemical far less effective against them specifically, and those survivors are the ones left to reproduce. Documented across aphids, flea beetles, moths, and several other common garden pests, this kind of resistance means the same bottle that worked well 2 summers ago can quietly work worse and worse each season after, even with nothing changing except which insects survived the last round. Here's what almost nobody explains about the powder sitting in your baking cabinet. Sodium bicarbonate, plain baking soda, doesn't have one single mechanism against garden pests. It has 4, and each one works completely differently depending on what you're aiming it at. Start with slugs and snails. Dust dry baking soda directly onto the pests themselves, not the surrounding soil, and it triggers a severe osmotic reaction, pulling water out of their soft bodies faster than they can compensate for it. It's the same basic principle as salting a slug, just gentler and more targeted, since the powder only affects what it directly touches rather than leaching into everything nearby. Apply it in early morning or evening when slugs are actually active and exposed, and reapply after rain washes it away. Move to aphids, and the approach changes completely. Mix 1 tablespoon of baking soda into a gallon of water with a few drops of plain dish soap and spray it directly onto the undersides of leaves, where aphids actually cluster and feed. The soap breaks the surface tension of the aphid's waxy outer coating, and the mild alkalinity of the baking soda solution disrupts that coating further, dehydrating soft-bodied insects that have almost no natural defense against a pH shift that dramatic on their exterior. It won't touch a hard-shelled beetle the same way, but for soft-bodied pests like aphids, it's remarkably effective. Then there's the mechanism most people have never even heard of, the one for ants. Mix equal parts baking soda and powdered sugar and set it out near an ant trail, not directly on the plants themselves. Ants can't resist the sugar, and because they can't taste the baking soda mixed in, they carry the entire mixture back to the colony, sharing it mouth to mouth the way ants do with all their food, a process called trophallaxis. Once inside an ant's digestive system, baking soda reacts with the acidic compounds ants naturally produce internally, releasing carbon dioxide gas that the ant's body has no way to safely expel. It doesn't kill the ant that carries it back. That one keeps walking, keeps feeding the colony for 2 or 3 days before the reaction catches up with it, which means every ant it fed in the meantime got a dose too, including the queen and the larvae deep inside the nest, the ones no direct spray could ever reach. That's the part almost every homemade pest remedy online misses entirely. A fast-acting poison only kills what it touches directly. A slow-acting one gets carried inward, into the one part of the colony that actually matters, the reproductive core that a surface spray was never built to reach in the first place. And for chewing pests, caterpillars, beetle larvae, anything eating whole sections of a leaf rather than sucking sap from it, A light dusting of dry baking soda directly onto the leaf surface changes the taste and texture just enough that many chewing insects abandon the plant entirely, rather than push through an unfamiliar, faintly alkaline coating. It's not a kill mechanism at all in this case. It's a deterrent. And for a home garden, sometimes convincing a pest to simply leave is just as useful as killing it outright. For pests. 4 separate reasons the exact same white powder works. Not one generic spray hoping to hit everything at once. But baking soda has a natural ceiling on ants specifically, and that's where a second, slightly stronger kitchen-adjacent mineral takes over when an ant problem is bigger than a few scattered scouts. This isn't some new internet trick either. Borax was first documented as an insecticide back in 1918, and by 1922, a commercial product built around it, an early roach tablet, was already on the market. Boric acid itself was formally registered as a pesticide in the United States by 1948, decades before synthetic pyrethroids like the one in Spectracide even existed. The chemical company selling you a $10 bottle today is, in a very real sense, standing on ground a mineral from a dry lake bed had already claimed 100 years earlier. Borax works through the same trophallaxis mechanism as the baking soda and sugar mixture, but the counterintuitive part is what actually determines whether it works. Most people assume a stronger mixture kills faster and better. It's the opposite. Mix borax too concentrated and it kills the worker ant almost immediately on the spot before it ever makes it back to the nest. The colony reads that as a threat and abandons the bait area entirely, sometimes within hours. Mix it weak enough that the worker survives long enough to walk home and share the bait normally, and that same worker can carry it to the queen and the entire brood before the reaction finally catches up with it 2 to 3 days later. A concentration around 1 part borax to 3 parts sugar, dissolved into water and soaked into cotton balls left near the trail, tends to hit that window correctly, strong enough to eventually work, weak enough that the colony never suspects a thing until it's already too late for it to matter. That single detail, weaker working better than stronger, is the exact opposite of how most people think poison is supposed to work, and it's exactly why so many homemade ant remedies fail. People assume more is always better. Dump in extra borax to speed things up and unknowingly sabotage the one mechanism that made the whole method effective in the first place. For aphids and soft-bodied caterpillars specifically, there's a third layer worth adding to the rotation, one that works through smell and irritation rather than dehydration. Blend a whole garlic bulb and a hot chili pepper with water, strain out the solids, and spray the liquid directly onto affected leaves. The alicin released from crushed garlic masks the chemical signals many pests use to locate host plants in the first place, essentially making your tomato plant smell wrong to an insect that's hunting by scent. The capsaicin from the chili adds a second layer, irritating an insect's sensory receptors on contact, the same receptors responsible for that burning sensation in a human mouth. It's worth being honest about where this one falls short, too. It does nothing against hard-shelled beetles, whose exoskeleton blocks most of the irritation entirely, and it has almost no effect on slugs, whose mucus layer acts as a physical barrier the spray can't penetrate. And it does nothing at all against pests already burrowed inside a stem or root, since a surface spray never reaches them. Layered alongside baking soda and borax rather than used alone, it fills a specific gap the other two don't cover as well, without pretending to be a universal fix on its own. There's also a timing detail worth building into all 3 methods together, since they work best as a rotation rather than a one-time fix. Baking soda treatments on slugs and aphids hold up for about a week before reapplication makes sense, especially after rain. The borax bait, once it's working, usually clears a visible ant trail within 4 to 7 days, though colonies with multiple queens sometimes take a second round, and the garlic and chili spray loses potency within about 5 days of exposure to sun and air, so a garden with an active aphid problem benefits from reapplying it roughly twice a week during the worst weeks of an infestation, then tapering off once the population visibly drops. None of these are meant to be applied once and forgotten, which is actually the same expectation Spectracide sets on its own label, reapplication every 1 to 2 weeks, just achieved here for a fraction of the cost, and without the collateral damage to the insects doing you a favor. Add up what a full season of this actually costs. A bottle of Spectracide runs $8 to $11, and a garden with a real pest problem often needs more than 1 bottle before summer's over. Baking soda, borax, garlic, and chili peppers together cost a few dollars total. Ingredients most kitchens already have sitting in a cabinet, and they cover slugs, aphids, ants, and chewing pests through 4 distinct, chemically explainable mechanisms instead of one blunt, broad-spectrum spray that kills the pests and the pests' natural predators in the same pass. So the next time something's chewing through a rosebush or a line of ants marches straight into a vegetable bed, remember the fix costing $10 and the fix costing less than $1 are aiming at completely different things. One of them kills whatever it touches and moves on. The other one follows the pest home. So tell me, what's actually eating your garden right now? Slugs, aphids, ants, or something chewing through the leaves overnight? And if you try the borax trail, are you patient enough to wait the 2 or 3 days it actually takes to work?